our new NRCS. Great. Drew, our new conservation tech in the back taking notes. As I go through these PowerPoints, I got a little QR code crazy because I feel like there's a lot of things I'm gonna be referencing that I'm not really gonna go in depth on, but if anybody wanted to get some more information on their own time, there will be some QR codes popping up about what I'm talking about to kind of lead you to some more information about it. Yeah, and I'm gonna just we're gonna plow through this first half and then we'll wait till the second half of the meeting to ask questions and start that discussion. So with that, I think we're ready to go. Minus me. Oh, I think introductions are first, and I keep looking over at Aaron. Aaron Ross, he's with NRCS. He's part of our facilitation cadre, and along with Lauren is helping me run the meeting today, making sure that we're staying on track with time and I'm not blabbing off. And yeah, okay, I think we can, how do I, is there a way to do a clicky thing, or am I just doing this?
It's probably the easiest. You have one for the projector, but
Okay.
I'm just gonna close out of this guy quick.
Okay, so local working group meeting. The goal for this meeting, or we've got three main goals. One is to introduce ourselves. That means NRCS and FSA, I'm sorry, ourselves as individuals, our presenters. And then us as an agency, and then the local work group process, what it is, why it's important, and why we're here today. I'll be also sharing some current financial and technical assistance opportunities through the NRCS and FSA. And last but not, actually, the most important purpose of this meeting, and one of the main goals should be number one, is to create the foundation of an NRCS urban fund pool. All right, introducing ourselves. I'm Stephanie Payne. I don't even think I introduced myself to begin with. I'm Stephanie Payne. Who am I? So I am an urban conservationist. I'm the only urban conservationist in Oregon right now. And technically my office is in Beaver Creek. That's where our USDA Urban Service Center is located. Though I service the Portland metro area, and I started working out of our state office next to the Lloyd Center. But I do consider myself very mobile in this position. So if you can't come to me, I'm very happy to go to you. And just a little bit of my background. So I grew up in San Diego. I spent most of my 20s in Tennessee and did a few stints in Georgia, Florida, and England. And while I was in all those places, I was mostly doing baking and pastry work. I had my own business for a while as a caterer. And then in my 30s, I decided to go back to school, get my degree through OSU in environmental science with a focus in ag, and got hired on at NRCS. Been here for 6 years now. Just recently, I was the small farm organic specialist in Redmond, covering 9 counties. And in July, I came on as the urban conservationist out of the Beaver Creek office. I'm going to let the FSA folks in the Urban Service Center introduce themselves, or at least I know Amanda's here. I don't know if John is on Zoom, but at least Amanda, if you want to just do a quick, you have a little bit of time after. I'm going to talk a little bit and then, so just an intro.
A quick intro.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Welker. I am the Urban County Executive Director for FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency. These are new positions through USDA. USDA is doing an urban agriculture, or FSA is doing an urban agriculture pilot. There are 17 cities, and Portland was one of the first 5 of those cities. I've been on board 9-10 months, so this is still a new initiative. Really glad to have Stephanie on board, and if John's on the line, he is our program tech at that office. My background, I've got almost 20 years of experience in agriculture and business development. I worked in the Oregon, I came from the state, I worked in the Oregon legislature, I worked in the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and I worked in the Business Development Department. I worked anywhere from really small farms, business development, all the way to international work. And so I live in Portland, really happy to be working in agriculture, like right in my community, but also based out of the Beaver Creek office. Stephanie.
Thank you. And then, I don't know if John is on, but I'll give him a second if he is. And then Lauren, I see a poll that popped up on my side. I don't know if everybody's saying.
Yep, so
Do
I
you-
got responses from that. You can X out of that, and it looks like I'm not seeing a John online.
Okay, no worries. I think that poll was just a kind of like a hands up, and I can do that in the room here as far as, I kind of know most everybody's faces here, but if you're a producer, if you're a farmer or rancher, if you just want to raise your hand. Even if you've got a home garden, what if you just have a home garden? And you're, yeah? Okay, we do both. I think most of us here are agency people, and Lauren, I didn't, oh yeah, we're raising hands. Great. Oh, I'm seeing producers. Jason, yes, wonderful. Welcome. Michelle, thank you. Bear, yes. Great to see you all virtually. It's wonderful. We got a lot of agency folks that showed up here in the room. I raised my hand for home gardener and federal agencies, so 2 categories. I don't know if we could have more than one there, but. So. So without John, we're just gonna move on to, okay, so we introduced ourselves. And next, I just wanted to do a quick, because the Urban Service Center is new and because a lot of folks maybe aren't super familiar with the NRCS, I just wanted to give a little background to provide some context for the rest of the meeting. So the NRCS, we're Natural Resources Conservation Service. We were initially established in 1935 as the Soil Conservation Service to combat the wastage of soil and moisture resources on farm, grazing, and forest lands. And as you can see in that photo taken by Dorothy Lang, it was pretty devastating in the 30s when the government encouraged folks to go out to the Midwest and till up the soil, and then drought hit and there was no irrigation. So all of that topsoil blew away. And I think it displaced millions of people, definitely killed quite a few folks. So we were created so that would never happen again. We changed our names in the 90s to the NRCS. We no longer just deal with soil erosion issues, but just all natural resource concern issues from air quality, water quantity, energy issues, you name it. We'll talk more about all those natural resource concerns a little bit later. The agency, we work on private working lands. Our motto is help people help the land. We put millions of dollars into conservation work every year through financial and technical assistance. Everything is outlined. Our programs are all outlined by the Farm Bill. All of our programs and our salaries are our taxpayer funded. And we are strictly natural resource concern focused. And bring us up to today, the USDA Urban Service Center. We were officially fully staffed last July when John and myself came on board. We are one of 17 new urban service centers in the country. We were lucky enough to get one here. So we're just getting started, and there's going to be a lot of learning. It might be a little clunky at first, but there's a lot of wonderful opportunities coming up for our urban producers, and we're here to help and provide some more opportunities for them. A quick note about this map. As far as, territories that NRCS and FSA are covering in this urban service center, not necessarily aligned at the moment. We're trying to work on that. But me as the NRCS conservationist, I am working with people in and around the urban growth boundary of Portland. Whereas FSA works a little bit differently. Their boundaries are the city of Portland.
City limits right
City
now.
limits.
Mhm.
So you'll see those two different outlines on your map. And there's some maps and folders to physical maps, just for reference. Real quick, what is urban? I get this question all the time. I don't really have a good answer because we've been directed by national, by all the higher ups, that we are not, we're purposely not defining urban. We are letting people define themselves as urban producers. We do have somewhere in our manual, there is a actual definition. I put that up here. It's land located in a landscape predominated by residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation uses. We are using that very loosely. I have a quote here from our regional conservationist. He said USDA has over 80 programs that could be applied to urban and innovative settings, and creating a standard definition could adversely impact how some programs are administered or create contradictions across policy and intent. We also want to prevent unintentionally limiting opportunities across the geographically diverse national landscape. And with that, real quick, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I want to introduce Marissa. I'm going to butcher your last name because I've never said it out loud before. Yeah.
It's Ted.
Tev, Marissa Tev, our basin soil scientist. She's gonna come up and talk soils real quick.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, everyone. Everyone's new. It's me here. Marissa Tev, I'm the resource soil scientist for this entire basin. So that's the 9 Northwest counties. I have experience with urban soils specifically. My background is I worked for NRCS. Back in the beginning of my career, I was mapping soils in New York and New Jersey out of an office in Connecticut. And then I moved over here to work for the Bureau of Land Management, which I did for the last 6.5 years. Now I'm here as of less than a year ago. So I'm happy to be back with NRCS on the Farm Bill side now. I just wanted to mention a couple kind of updates to the soil program. So typically my workload is right now I'm catching up on a wetland compliance backlog, also highly erodible lands as part of how you qualify to get the Farm Bill benefits. My position was vacant for over a year before I got there, so we're catching up. But I hope to expand sort of the outreach program. That's another part of my position, and specifically with urban soils, because I do have a background in that. I also provide assistance with soil survey. So because I used to make that data, I can help you determine whether or not your use of it is appropriate and what interpretation might fit your need and that kind of thing. So the two other kind of updates we've got, I just wanted to mention, because especially with urban soils, my supervisor is trying to purchase right now an X-ray fluorescence unit, which will be portable. So that's something I used over in New York and New Jersey. Basically, it looks like a laser tag gun, but it's not one. We don't want to use it that way. You only, you shoot it at samples away from people, but it will tell you the elemental content of your sample. And specifically, it's useful for heavy metals. So I see this in the future as doing outreach in maybe historically underserved areas. We can zap these soil samples and tell whether or not you have lead or mercury or something like that, whether or not you might need a raised bed in that location. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention was this spring, so I have a counterpart on the Mount Hood National Forest who told me that they have a surplus of biochar available. And they're gonna have a feed-free day, late spring, where folks can go and fill up their pickup truck or however you want to get your biochar. And I'm not sure if there'll be a loader or not there. That came up at my last board meeting. But you can go get your biochar. It's already been tested, so they know kind of what you're starting with. This has been being produced or has been produced from the 2020 Labor Day fires. They had Riverside Fire on the Mount Hood National Forest. And so they have a bunch of biochar and they don't know what to do with it. They want to get it out on the ground. So if you know someone that's interested in that for as an amendment, the soil amendment, or for research, I don't have a date yet, but when I do, I can let Stephanie and everyone else know. Yeah,
Sorry, who's offering that?
the Mount Hood National Forest, so Forest Service. Yeah, so another federal agency, and normally you get a permit for a special forest product, but they're gonna waive the fees for 1 day so that people can come and get it for free.
Hey, Marissa.
Yeah.
So Jason from Growing Gardens commented, when could they have access to that tool for soil testing, and that they would also love some biochar?
Yeah, awesome. So the X-ray fluorescence unit is gonna take some time to purchase because it is, it's radiation, basically. So, we're gonna have to after we're in the process of doing the paperwork to purchase it. After that, we'll also have to have training and have designated users. So we're thinking at least, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, but it might be a little longer than that. So that would be, September fiscal year. We'll see.
Awesome. And then another comment, is there a website or something, more info that I could drop in the chat for folks that are interested in getting biochar?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have a contact, and I can share that, but that's all I've got so far.
Lauren,
Great, thank you.
I can add to that, at the very end of the slides, I think I have, or at least I can drop it in the chat, that the listserv that I send things out, or I send to you to send out. I can push that info out through that urban listserv, so it gets to everybody.
Sounds good. I'll definitely drop that in the chat.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marissa. I realized I've got everything on paper here and I missed a slide and I must have just been really happy fingers here. I just want to back it up real quick because I forgot to talk about this meeting and why it's important and its and its history. Yeah.
Can you ever, when the Zoom move it's covering the QR code.
Oh, Lauren, is it possible to minimize is it us? Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if it goes up to actually the bottom left corner, there's no QR codes. Yeah.
Better?
Thank you.
Thank you. The local work group meeting is important because this is a public forum that we hold annually to, on the record, get feedback from partners, stakeholders, farmers, ranchers, to let us know what are the natural resource concerns that they are seeing on their property, in their neighborhood, in their city, so that NRCS can create opportunities to provide financial and technical assistance to address those natural resource concerns. All of us conservationists, we talk with folks on the ground. We hear you when we're walking your fields, but this is the official on the record so that we can then develop what we call a conservation implementation strategy. So that would be me basically writing an internal grant to our state office to ask for money based on the feedback here today to allocate funds towards an urban fund pool and it has to be very specific. It's very strategic. We call it the strategic approach to conservation. I wish we can have a program, that would be able to deliver everything to everybody all the time. But the way that Oregon develops these CISs is that it's usually addressing a handful of resource concerns. And it's got a short list of conservation practices that go along with it. And I'll have some reference to some other CISs as we go along here. So our main goal in the second half of the meeting is to get that feedback, to talk about the challenges and the opportunities, what that might look like, what an urban fund pool might look like here in Portland. This website will bring you to a webpage that shows all of those local fund pools in your area. It's pretty cool. You can click kind of where you're located. And you can kind of cycle through all the different funding that's available. Now, these are the local fund pools, things like the High Tunnel Initiative and Organic Initiative. These national fund pools won't show up on here, but I'll be hitting on all of those here soon. So sorry about that. And now we're going back to, that was a little bit of background on NRCS, how we formed, why we're here. We met Marissa, our soil scientist, and now I'm going to introduce, well, not introduce, because we already introduced you, Amanda, talk a little bit more about FSA and FSA's role in the Urban Service Center.
Let me come up there.
Yeah, I think want to. No
Yeah,
pressure.
great.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. What a beautiful Sunday afternoon. It's too bad they're in here. But I'll make this quick, but I just wanted to make some point. Quick survey, who's familiar with Farm Service Agency? Everybody kind of knows a little bit? Okay, a little bit. If we were in a rural community, people would know Farm Service Agency, right? Every farmer knows their Farm Service Agency in their county office, and they're involved and they read those newsletters. Why? Because they get paid, right? That's how they get payments. We implement the farm bill. We administrate the farm bill. We make direct payments to farmers, ranchers, producers. Obviously, we don't have a great idea at FSA who those farmers, producers are in urban areas. And that looks a lot different than it does in our rural community. So as we embark on this pilot in these 17 urban cities, we've got a lot to figure out. We need some grace, but we also need a lot of help from our partners. And we also need a lot of help from the community to get the word out, to get people knowledgeable about FSA. I'm working with my cohort, right? So I have 16 other folks. Actually, not all the offices are hired on yet. I think there's really only 10 of us, urban county executive directors nationally right now. So as we build that group, we're really working together to get to know each other, understand the needs, concerns, what we need to be doing. And how many of you have worked with or know about your county committee, a county committee for FSA? A few less hands. So the county committee that's an election process, right? So these are made up of producers, and these producers, they have authority to approve, disapprove payments, programs, things that happen that gets administrated through that farm bill. So we have had an urban committee for 3 years. And they started with the committee. I've been on just 9-10 months. And how that works is that we have right now, I believe we've got about 40 urban producers registered in the whole city of Portland boundary. How many ballots did we get in this last election? 3. So we've got a lot of work to do to educate people about these committees, educate people about the race, and how that works. But these are like really, these are volunteer positions. Miles, thank you for your service. The last 3 years, Miles served as our chair for 3 years. And we have 3 county committee members now. Josh Volk is our chair, Kwame Bay is our vice chair, and Stacey Gibbons is our member of the committee. So 3-member committee representing 3 different areas of Portland. Roughly west side, northeast, and southeast, just for general awareness. Right now, that boundary is just the city limits. We're obviously missing some important areas, in my opinion. We're missing Gresham, we're missing Rockwood, we're missing areas of Hillsborough and Beaverton. These are areas that I believe are urban. And if you look at the urban agriculture website, it actually says urban, suburban, and tribal. So I think that there's area to grow. We will be recommending that we expand our boundaries, hopefully to match up with NRCS so that we're all on the same page. So I came into this role and I'm like, this is great. I'm so excited to reach this new group of producers and like, oh, by the way, we have no new programs. I'm like, oh, well, what do you mean? There's no programs for urban producers? Like, no, we have our existing programs. And then our job is to make our programs more equitable for urban producers. So that's exciting in a way because we have the opportunity in the pilot project to make policy recommendations, right? that's kind of a neat thing that we get to do, is make policy recommendations to USDA. Hey, this program's okay, but if we can tweak it here, here, and here, that's really going to serve our urban producers and really going to help us reach historically underserved producers, which is our main goal through the Urban Service Center. Let's see, what does Farm Service Agency do? A lot. There are too many farm programs to list. Truly, there's a lot of them. But what I can say is they're around disaster resilience, think heat, think climate change. They're around conservation, and they're around lending. So those are kind of in a big nutshell. That's where they're at. What kinds of programs do we have that can fit urban? Not too many. There's a handful. We've got a couple of programs for specialty crops around like kind of insurance for specialty crops. We have got organic certification cost share. We've got lending programs. We've got some farm storage facility programs. And then I wasn't really thinking about livestock, but I'm going to bring this to the committee next month. There is a program called the Livestock Indemnity Program. So that means like, if you have extreme cold or extreme heat and you lose livestock, and I was like, well, we don't really have livestock too much. Well, I did meet a producer who's raising rabbits, right? For example, rabbits are not on the list on the Livestock Indemnity Program. So we can make that recommendation. Hey, let's include rabbits. We've got those in urban communities that should be added. And potentially, I know that this person lost some rabbits in the last heat dome. That would be something that we could change. So just giving like a practical example of what could be done. We talked about the registration. We talked about the voting. I want to talk about partnerships. These are very important. FSA, like I said, is really directed toward producers, right? We give money or we, share money with producers directly, but partnerships are really important. We're not going to be able to meet everyone. It's really important to build those partnerships across the city and across the metro area. One stellar partner that we've got right now, I don't know, Alicia, if you'd raise your hand in the back, is EcoTrust. We have a cooperative agreement with EcoTrust to help us carry out this work, specifically with BIPOC producers. So they have got some funding to help us build bridges with the community, conduct events. They've got some sub-award money for some nonprofits to do important work in this area. And they're also going to be launching some micro grants directly for producers. So that's all coming down the line. But it's really important. If you know of somebody that needs to know about us, please let us know. Just a few things. Challenges. I want to hear from you. I want to hear about the challenges. What I'm seeing really is water. It's a big challenge, right? We're using municipal water. Programs, lack of programs or programs that don't quite fit. Acreage. Most of FSA's programs are based on acreage. Well, how does that work? When we're dealing with really small plots. Climate, and then working with nonprofits, right? A lot of the production is for nonprofits. So we're used to working with people that, produce for profit. So how does that work and how do we shift and develop programs differently? Finally, we really want your feedback. We're an open door policy. Come talk to me, call us up, Stephanie, John. We want to hear from you, want to hear your ideas. The committee meetings are open to the public. You're welcome to attend and join. And as we embark on this pretty exciting journey, I look forward to getting all to know you. So I don't know if there are any questions or Jeremy.
When are the meetings?
So our next one is March 13th, but they're quarterly right now.
Okay,
Because we don't have a lot of programs to review in those meetings. But I think down the road, there may be an opportunity to expand them further.
you said March 13th?
March 13th, yeah.
So is it just the registered urban producers that elect these county committee members?
Right, the county
You
committee
have to be
members are
registered.
producers
Yeah.
and they're elected by their peers
Okay.
of producers,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
You mentioned just kind of Portland area.
Yeah.
Is any of that boundary expanded to Washington County? Or are you just within West Multnomah?
So I believe it will, I can't say for sure, but we're bringing a recommendation forward to the committee next month to expand that boundary. I think UGB area, but we can include areas of Washington County. So I can't say for sure. That said, there's also an interest statewide. I was at the Small Farms Conference on Saturday last week, and people from Eugene, people from Corvallis, from Salem, they have interest in this urban ag initiative. So no one is really excluded, right? Since there aren't specific urban programs, no one's excluded. I guess my message today is if you know a producer, they should register for FSA. The paperwork is kind of intimidating to get going. But once you do it, you're in the system, you know what's going on. I'll give an example, right? Like right now, we're making payments for natural disasters that happened in 2022, right? There are many urban farmers that may have had disasters, in 2022, but unless you're in the system, you're never going to get that check. And so, that's kind of my goal, is to really bump up these registrations for voting and for program utilization. Yeah.
Is there what, is there a definition for who qualifies as a producer?
There is a definition. It's vague. I think Stephanie alluded to it earlier. USDA has left the definition of urban agriculture vague on purpose, right? And they have also said on the urban committee, someone with an agricultural interest. Now, our committee chair is like, doesn't everyone have an agricultural interest? Yes, we do. But if you're not sure, we can just talk it through and see if it's a fit or not. Great, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Amanda. Sorry.
Hey,
I had one
Amanda,
question.
before.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
there's a
There might be
question
some
and
online
comments.
questions, right?
Yeah, so two people asked about peri-urban included in that urban boundary, so that transition area between urban and rural.
Mhm.
And then
So peri-urban, I'm thinking that falls under suburban. I'm gonna think about that way. So yeah, that would be included, and it's actually in USDA's language.
Great.
there
And
another-
then there's a comment. Yeah, there's two more comments. One, Michelle Week commented that she met with Friends of Oregon last night about the urban growth boundary and zoning and work with urban farms. Sparked some awareness and good thought, but they weren't aware of the urban center, so it might be good for us to reach out. And then Jason with Growing Gardens commented it would be good to include the Oregon Community Food System Network.
Got it. Thank you all. That's great. And please reach out. Let's connect. It's gonna, as Stephanie said, federal government's not fast, right? This is gonna be slow moving, and we're gonna, keep building this over time. But really nice to have you all here today.
Thank you, Amanda. Sorry, folks, my was harsh. I did not come prepared with water. Aaron, how are we on time?
I'm pretty good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a thought, while you were talking. Lauren, when folks in person are asking questions, is that getting picked up by the owl, or should we reiterate the question?
I haven't had much issue hearing so far, but I will definitely let you know if we can't hear.
Okay, excellent. Great. All right, I'm my notes here. Okay. So now I would like to briefly, I don't know, I was literally looking up, Googling urban ag memes. And this one tickled me. Just add some levity to the situation. So just some examples of, NRCS, we've been maybe not calling it urban ag, but we've been working in urban environments for a long time. Folks, I have to give a shout out to the district conservationists, Jessica Wells and Ken Galland. If anybody has worked with them in the past, they've done so much work in this area. And have really just been helpful for urban farms. So I'm just gonna pluck out some success stories of NRCS working in these environments, just to kind of demonstrate that as we move into the conversation on what else could we do. But first, I wanted to do just a couple myth busting things. I have encountered, just talking with our partners and producers, that there are certain preconceptions, misconceptions about NRCS and who we can work with and what we can do. And I have to give credit to Amy Hendershot. She's an NRCS person who developed this whole myth busting document, so I'm pulling all of this from there. Lauren, I don't know if you want to, it's more like a good for partners, but if we want to throw that up in the chat, there's a longer version with more myths on there. I just pulled up the top 4. So one of them is you have to be farming a minimum number of acres to qualify for funding. We don't have any sort of acreage requirement. That is not true. Subsistence growers are not considered agricultural producers, and subsistent lands are not eligible. Also not true. I think the NRCS definition is having to produce food, fiber, and livestock. That could mean a lot of different things, and those folks could potentially qualify as an eligible producer for our programs. Again, that would be something you talk with your local FSA office, with Amanda or John, to determine that. Gardening / horticulture is not farming or ag. A backyard gardener is not engaged in ag production, so they are not eligible for EQIP, our environmental quality incentives program. Also not true. Again, going back to that definition of producing food, fiber, and livestock, could potentially qualify as an agricultural producer. And then the last one is community ag and backyard small plot gardens are not an eligible form of production. It's definitely not the case. There's lots of historic precedent of NRCS working with community gardens and like HOAs. Some of this will get back to land eligibility and producer eligibility. So NRCS, we work on private lands. They can be leased, they can be owned. We can work on public lands if an individual or an entity, even a nonprofit, has a lease on that land. So that could be a possibility as well. With that. Yes, Miles.
Requires some sort of lease though.
Yes.
on land.
Yes,
If
that,
you're just using some land that somebody says, yes, you can use this land, that would not hold.
if you could get that on paper, and it could be really simple, Miles has control over this piece of land for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Sign the owner.
Okay.
I've seen that fly.
Okay.
And that's another thing, just making sure if it's a contract that you're applying, or a contract for one of our programs, you will have to have that lease for the duration of the contract.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I know this is not the west side, but this was the first first conservation plan I ever worked on by myself, and this was in Central Oregon. It's a Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, and they're near and dear to my heart. They are nonprofits. They service veterans and their families. They came to the NRCS because if you see on the left, they were trying to grow things in Central Oregon. And I would consider peri-urban. They were right on the edge of Redmond. And of course, it's hard to grow anything besides grass over there. And so they're having poor yields and having a tough go of it. So they came to us and I worked with them on a high tunnel project through our high tunnel initiative. And look how happy they are, and they're growing all these wonderful things, and they're able to, so they ended up creating community garden plots inside of the high tunnel where veterans and their families could come and garden and heal and provide food for their families. Since then, they've gotten an OWEB grant. They've put in a hydroponic system. They grow lettuce for local restaurants and co-ops in the area. I don't know if you can see behind the sad garden on the left, they actually had I think like 8 acres of pasture. And so they're working on renovating that, putting in cross fencing, putting in a prescribed grazing plan, getting some livestock water out to the sheep that they're raising. Such as one example. And that was mostly through the High Tunnel Initiative, and the pasture project was through another EQIP fund pool, I think maybe IRA, which I'll talk about later. or maybe CIC, I don't remember. Okay, here's one closer to home. Jeremy he left. This is his project. Jeremy over at the East Multnomah Soil Water Conservation District worked with, and I called Genevieve and asked her if it was okay to mention her and her property, and she said that was fine. Okay, good. Well, he'll recognize it when he sees it here. Jeremy, I was just talking about Genevieve's project. No, good things, all good things. So when I first came into the position, I asked all the SWC folks if they wouldn't mind me hopping along on any site visits, and they've all been so wonderful, getting me up to speed on what was going on. And I was so impressed with this project. Genevieve Flanagan is it Urban Acre Farmstead?
Urban Acre Farm.
Or Urban Acre Farm
Yep.
over in East Multnomah. She works with Jeremy over here with the CLIP.
Yeah, Cooperative Landowner Incentive Program through the East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thank you. A CLIP grant to install a rainwater harvest catchment system. So Genevieve now has about 9,000 gallons worth of storage. She is now able to not use her municipal water source for most of the irrigation season. In a good year, she says she has to turn on the municipal water for about a month. Bad years is 3 months. And then she is working now to increase that water storage capacity so that she could close that gap. I hear all the time, and I know my engineer is like trying to do the math here.
I was trying to figure out how much they were.
So she's trying to do the math because on the engine, and we can talk more about this later, but our engineers, I'm always hearing that, there's not, it requires so much storage for the crop needs to be able to meet the crop requirements for water. And that might be true. But Genevieve is making it work. And it was really wonderful to see.
Especially if you couple it with soil moisture monitoring and irrigation water management, you can really stretch that water out. And not only that, if it's a grant funded project, any amount of water that takes you off of the municipal system for drinking water is going to benefit. There's a benefit.
Yes, this makes me so excited. I really want to talk more about this in the second half of and so this is urban. This is urban. She's right in the middle of a residential area.
It's right in the name.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's right in the name.
And it's literally 1 acre, her plot,
Yep.
which is unusual in an urban setting
Mhm.
because they're mostly set up for housing. She has literally 1 acre that she is using to live on and farm on.
Yeah, yeah. And so I would like to talk later about, scaling and, we'll get into more of that stuff, but this is a success, I think. Another successful project, I don't know if anybody's familiar with our village gardens. It's a designated USDA, yeah. I don't know if it was the first in the country. It was first in Oregon, People's Garden. And they got all that going before my time here. I was lucky enough to be able to visit. I was literally like third day on the job, and the chief of the NRCS was in town. And I got to meet the chief and get to go to the garden space, and they were just wonderful, wonderful hosts. It was really lovely to see all the work that they're doing. I think it was in 2022, maybe earlier than that. They worked with us to put in a 50-foot long hedgerow, 135-foot long insectary strip, and an additional 225 square feet of native pollinator habitat. And that habitat, pollinator habitat, was designed by Xerces. We have a partner with Xerces who helps us as NRCS planners to design these pollinator habitats. And that pollinator habitat was, specifically designed to include plants that bloom throughout the growing season, provide stem nesting habitat, overwintering habitat, in an urban setting. So that was really exciting to see. I know there's a lot of the Backyard Habitat program is supporting similar efforts in a different capacity. This is the NRCS side of things doing similar work. Okay, briefly, because I think we're time.
Yeah, we could put 10 minutes.
Okay, I don't know where my seconds are. We've got 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Okay. Current funding opportunities. So all the programs I'm about to mention are under the umbrella of the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. Our deadline for this fiscal year is passed. The application deadlines typically come up in the fall. Sometimes we have extra money and we do a second sign up. I have no idea if that's gonna happen. You can't guarantee it ever. Hightail Initiative is, I think, our most popular, at least more well-known for our small scale and urban producers. This is strictly just cost share on high tunnels. That's it. That's the only thing offered under the initiative. In years past, we used to have some supporting practices. They've done away with it. Now I'm saying that for this year, every year these things change. So I don't know what it's going to look like next year or in another farm bill. But right now, that QR code will lead you to the site to kind of talk more about that. Organic Initiative is the exact opposite program. It has every conservation practice that NRCS offers here in Oregon. And that program, to be eligible for that, you need to self-certify that you are USDA certified organic, transition and become USDA certified organic, or what we consider exempt from organic certification. And that those are folks that are managing organically, but are grossing less than $5,000 a year or less in sales. A lot of our nonprofits and small scale producers have been able to be eligible under that exempt status for that program. Organic Transition Initiative. I'm going to kind of run through these fast because I'm getting short on time. This is a new program. It's just for transitioning producers. It comes with a mandatory management practice. Basically, you're getting paid to manage your operation organically within our NRCS specifications. This is new. I haven't worked with this program at all. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of untapped funding in this pool because it's so new and we're just trying to figure it all out. So if you know of or are a transitioning producer or thinking about it, get in touch with me or any of the the district conservationists. Learn more. Local pools, real quick, there's a soil health CIS in this area. It's not specifically an urban pool, but it does provide some cost share for soil health related practices, including cover cropping, soil carbon amendments, nutrient management, crop rotation, things like that. And then IRA is like a huge fund pool. They're throwing a lot of money in. There's different categories for IRA funding, depending on the land use. And depending on the land use, there's certain practices that are available. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but that code will lead you to some more info. And then going back to this, so if you're wherever you are, I would just direct you to this website to look at those local fund pools, see what's available. Our other behemoth of a program, Conservation Stewardship Program, otherwise known as CSP. This is an untapped resource here in this area, especially for our small scale producers. In years past, so it's a 5-year contract. You have to have, like we were talking, Miles, if you're leasing the ground, you have to make sure that lease at least for 5 years. The land has to have been in production for 4 out of the last 6 years. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the one that has been on the land, but that land itself has to have been in production for 4 of the last 6 years. In years past, participants would get a bare minimum, like if you're working on a really small acreage, there's an acreage-based payment that you get, and it's an annual payment, just as thank you for being a good steward and keep doing what you're doing. So this program is really for folks that are already kind of operating at a high level of conservation stewardship. That's the name. So it used to be that you would get $1,500 a year for that annual payment over the course of 5 years. That's. We can't do more, 4,500? Thank you. $4,500, for a 5-year contract. New, they bumped up that minimum annual payment to $4,000. So over the course of 5 years, you're getting $20,000. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for folks to tap into this resource. There's a lot of money in the fund pool this year. If it's something you think you're interested in, please contact me. And real quick, because I just saw this, just a shout out to, it's under the NRCS, it's the Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production, OUAIP. It's a mouthful, I know. This is more for our partners. Info, you know of, like, or even like the nonprofit arena. There's an April 9th deadline. I think the ceiling is, the ceiling ask is 350,000. And I can't remember what the minimum is, but the primary goal for these grants is to support the development of urban ag and innovative production. They have 2 different categories. One's under planning and one's under implementation. So you could submit an application for, if you're planning on doing something like that is going to support urban ag or innovative production, and you just need more resources to do the surveys and the groundwork and the workshops and things, then you can apply for funding for that. And then the actual implementation side, there's funding for. Okay, 2 minutes over. Okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break for, let's see, I got 1:57 on my clock, unless Lauren, sorry, before I move on, was there any questions with anything I just said?
Yeah, there's some questions, comments in the chat. Jason with Growing Gardens asked, does the lease need to be a specific amount of years?
Only if, it depends on the program you're applying for. If it was CSP, it would need to be for the 5 years. Basically, the lease has to be for as long as you're getting a contract for those years. I think that makes sense.
Great. And then Michelle Wee commented, I would love to explore how we can protect and allow properties that are privately owned, like the urban farm, so that it can't get developed. Most land trusts I'm familiar with won't take on a 1-acre urban parcel, and sometimes the Parks Department is underfunded to manage more properties.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I know this is a huge issue. I am trying to get more information. I don't have a background in easements. I do know that urban easements in the urban area with the UGB comes with a lot of politics and background. I am not up to speed on getting there. I'm hoping to get there and see what the possibilities are. I know it's kind of tricky. That's all really that I know. But
Great.
we'll stay in touch, Michelle, and I will let you know if I find something.
And then just one more question from Jason. For the CSP, what level of production are they looking at?
I don't know if I understand the question. There's no real look at like yield. We're talking about yields. There's no yield data that we're looking at. It's more of, excuse me, going back to the natural resource concerns. So like how well, do you have any water quality or quantity issues? Sorry, I need more water. I don't know who that person was, but if I'm not answering it and need a little bit of clarification, happy to.
Is it based on size of land being cultivated?
Nope, not at all. There's no minimum or maximum. It does affect your annual payments. If for some reason you have small acres and there's like a whole spreadsheet. CSP is crazy complicated, but that's why we're here. We're here to work through it with you. But there is a spreadsheet. I put in a bunch of numbers and a bunch of information, and then it spits out what your annual payment is. On a lot of the small acreage properties, you're not really getting a whole lot. That's why they've made that minimum annual payment 4K.
Great, thank you.
More.
For that last grant, the UAIP grant, Does that allow, for example, a nonprofit or purchase brand new land with a UGB wants to turn it into a farm?
Maybe.
And it takes a lot of development to get, to do all that, not only train the group of people to farm, but also design the farm, install, et cetera.
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. But I can find the answer for you. And that QR code, and I can go back to it real quick. That'll lead you to the notice of funding. And it'll lay out all the details and the requirements and eligibility and what they're looking for within the realm of the grant. Yeah, but I can look into that, because I want to say, I've been a reviewer for these grants before, and I just can't remember. Well, I'm getting nervous too here, I can't like recall. I can't recall off the top of my head if there are any projects like that. Yeah.
Is there gonna be like any other info sessions or anything like that?
For OUAIP?
Yeah.
Yes, I can send that info out. I think they just. Previous webinars that they've recorded. And then I can, if anything else comes up, I can send it out for sure. Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a break. I know we're running a little behind. And we started a little bit late. I'm sorry about that. Okay, vote for, I'm gonna 5 or 10 minutes. 5 minutes, raise your hand. 10 minutes, raise your hand. I've got 5 minutes over on this side, Lauren. I don't know what the Zoom crowd is full with.
5 minutes sounds good.
Okay. 2:07. I think people are still running to the restroom, so we're gonna do another 5 minutes. I'm sorry for.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So there was a lot of great conversation had in the room during our little break. And I just wanted to hit a couple things real quick that were brought to my attention. I just want to make sure everybody knows that I had thrown up a lot of dates up there for application deadlines. We accept applications all year long for all of these programs. The sooner you get them in, I think the better, because then we can track and we can do site visits before things get crazy, and it's easier to fit that in. If you are leasing land, yes, you can participate. You might be able to participate in our programs, so long as we talked about having a lease for the length of the contract. Another part of that piece of the puzzle is if it is leased, and there's some conservation practice that is structural going in, like a composting facility. There will be a document that we make up saying, this is the compost facility, this is the lifespan, and then the owner of the property will have to sign off and say that it's okay that gets installed on the property. And then really quick, I was just taking a look, just refreshing my brain on the 2047. It's a form, FSA form that Amanda mentioned. It's basically this, and then a map saying, or map and some sort of documentation saying that you lease or own a property to get you a farm and tract number to be a voting member. And I'm looking at this form, all it's asking is, there's nothing here that says, like, you don't have to put like how many acres you're farming, what you're farming. It's literally like your name, your number, where you are, optional, like race, ethnicity, gender questions, totally optional. And then that's basically it. So it's like
Voting form is pretty smooth, but the forms for the programs.
the programs, yeah, to get in our programs, it's a little bit more heavy, but if you just wanted to vote and have a voice, it's just that one piece of paper and then the documentation about the land, which would be really simple.
Stephanie, so to get in the programs, do you need to be filing a Schedule F?
You
Not
guys,
necessarily, depends on the program, over the years.
oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean that. For NRCS eligibility for any of our programs, all the documents that just as a back up a little bit, so FSA acts as a clearinghouse for eligibility for all of our programs, all the ones that I've mentioned thus far. All all those documents that you need to fill out with FSA for our programs does not require, that you have a Schedule F. Belong. Okay. Now, we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes here. But first, I get really excited about possibilities of NRCS working in urban environments with urban farmers. Just to kind of like bring it back down a little bit. I wish we could do everything. We cannot do everything. So as we kind of start talking about an urban fund pool, I just wanted to point out things that we cannot do. We cannot. It's very sad. I don't mean to start off, but I think it's important, so I don't get like derailed. We cannot, as of right now, do any sort of perimeter fencing around cropland to exclude those pesky deer and elk or any other critters or people or anything. That is a no-go. We cannot pay for security systems. We cannot pay for equipment purchases or leases. We cannot help you buy that piece of land that would just be beautiful and wonderful and perfect. Sometimes projects that involve engineering, I mean, it takes a while to get off the ground. We have engineers on staff. Wonderful. Adriana is amazing. She's our basin engineer. She's got a lot to do. There are a lot of engineering practices between rainwater harvest catchment systems to facilities on dairies across, I don't know, how many counties? 9 counties. She has one other engineer on staff and they're doing all of this work, all of the engineering. So that can take some time to get that design. It will get done, but just expect a longer timeline. Water right, certification and verification. If NRCS is working with you to upgrade the efficiency of your current irrigation system, we will require that you show proof that you have rights to that water. Yes.
For the perimeter fencing of cropland, what about perimeter fencing for pasture? Is that something that is
That-
covered or not?
Is context dependent. And it depends on the basin. This gets a little tricky. I have seen it happen on rangeland before where there was an existing fence, but it was degraded so much that it was no longer able to function. And so we were able to remove the existing fence and put in a new functional fence.
There's a maybe.
Yeah, the typical, like, it depends. Yeah. More.
Also on the fencing, about converting or making it more wildlife friendly.
Oh, Erin, you know more about fencing than I do. I think we have a practice to add wildlife friendly markers.
Yeah, and then there's some counties on the east side that they're rolling up the old cheap fence and putting in 3-wire, which is more wildlife friendly. But I would say there's gonna be some changes in the fencing world, the whole virtual fencing concept, which is definitely more of a east side big ranch kind of thing. But there's been a lot of movement to go to virtual fencing, and then you're tearing out all cross fencing and using the GPS colors and those types of things to move your livestock around. So I would say if that's something that you identify as being important, we can follow up and get more information, and maybe what's okay now may change in the next couple of years, because this IRA funding has opened up things that we never did before, and it's kind of like, well, we might be more flexible in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, the current areas where there's urban farming, there's also usually it's a wildlife corridor, which are very minimal and shrinking in the urban areas, so.
That's a great point. Ooh, that's gonna go up on, we're gonna have an exercise. That's definitely gonna go up there. Okay, Amanda.
Question, is there funding for things like indoor agriculture, controlled environment, rooftop?
If, that's a great question. This is definitely new territory for NRCS. I do know that if you have an existing system in place, like, you know, existing, like you say you have a shipping container and it's like a hydroponic system, you've got lights and water there, but it's not very efficient. NRCS might be able to come in and help you upgrade the LED, upgrade the emitters, increasing the efficiency of the water. I know Adriana's like looking at me.
Yeah, no,
That'd be engineering elements.
Yeah, I don't know too much about this just because we haven't dealt with it.
Yeah.
But personally, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
I know OUAIP is pushing that eye.
I've heard that, and I know that they're adding stuff about like aquaponics and things like that to like our engineering handbook. So I think it's headed that direction.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the.
Sorry for that.
No, that's a great question, and I think both Amanda and I are working to get more up to speed on, learned it's called CA, Controlled Environment Agriculture, to see where we might be able to come in and help out. Any other questions before I? So that was just get that out of the way, that's not fun. So as we start talking about, urban fund pools and what that might look like, I just want to make sure that we're staying again in the frame of the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So we need to demonstrate that a natural resource concern exists. And we call this, well, we have an acronym, of course. I've heard it SWAPA plus H. Have you heard any other ways? SWAPA plus H? It kind of looks like swap A, but
That's because
you want to have fun.
it never used to be there, so.
Yeah, they keep adding the letters, so SWAPA plus H, and that's soil, water, air, plants, animals, energy, plus human. And human is human resource concerns are pretty vaguely defined. Lauren, this is that giant document about all of the resource concerns. I'm just gonna kind of pass these around as like, if you just wanna like, oh, does NRCS deal with this resource concern or what have you, just to kind of get the juices flowing for thinking about natural resources. I'll just put one around this side and one on this side. Feel free to look at it, not look at it. I think I did. Has anybody who is here not gotten a packet? Okay, I'm just gonna start it here, and if you just want to hand it around. Drew, our new conservation tech, was wonderful help. He put together these packets as I was rushing around. And inside there should be a list, a one-pager. Give kudos to Aaron for pulling up. It's not a 57-page document that I found. It's actually just one page, which is much more helpful. List of natural resource concerns. So Lauren, if we could drop that in the chat, that would be great too. Just as some reference material as we're kind of talking through these things. Yes.
I'm sure I missed this earlier, but is this PowerPoint going to be made available?
Yeah, I can, it's being recorded and then I can send it out. For sure. Yeah. All right. So I've been here since July. I don't know. I have a lot to learn still. I have a lot of folks to still meet with, but I have been doing a lot of site visits, talking with urban farmers. I put together like 3 just brainstorming possible CIS, possible CISs. So this is just kind of to get like, I'm putting this out there as, do I have my finger on the pulse of this? Do I not? What am I missing? If it's like, am I totally off base? I've got 3 ideas here and I'm gonna just go over these 3 ideas and then we can keep talking about like what else is out there that we might be able to address. I stole this idea from Washington. Washington's a little ahead of the game, Washington NRCS. They already have urban fund pools. They have what they are calling an urban ag starter pack. And I love this idea. Maura would just pointed out, what's available for beginning farmer ranchers? Well, it's a little chicken and the egg with NRCS. We always have to make sure that there's a natural resource concern that exists first. We can't till up land that hasn't been tilled previously. But if you're like just getting started, you put a crop in the ground, maybe. I think this might be a good starter pack. the main resource concern would be addressing is increasing plant productivity and health, and we would do that through high tunnels, which we have through the high tunnel initiative, but that's just a high tunnel. But this, we could package together, like there's nothing stopping us as NRCS stopping us from planning a high tunnel with raised beds, with low tunnels, with mulched pathways. So that's my idea here, putting in soil testing, to, get that benchmark soil condition, understood, and then possibly throwing in some soil carbon amendment, because inevitably, I'm sure we're having to amend our soils at some point. The cool thing about this, I think, would be, we do have an option, it's underutilized here. It's called Act Now, and I think if any district conservationist was on this call or listening in, they would be throwing things at me. Because typically the way our funding works is we have like a deadline for the program, and then we work for like 6-9 months a year on developing a conservation plan and getting it to contract. Act Now is like act now, like you apply and a timer starts on us as conservationists to push out or to get it to a contract if it gets approved for funding. I don't know what the timeline is. I think it's like a couple months, but it's continuous. It's continuous. So somebody can come in June and apply and then get a contract and a couple months later. So you're not beholden to the typical fund pool timeline. And I think this would be advantageous for our beginning farmer ranchers, for urban producers, like we were talking about with short leases. They only have a certain amount of time to get something in the ground, or maybe it doesn't make sense to start putting in a high tunnel and start soil carbon amendments in the middle of the summer. When you finally got that equip contract. Another benefit to this, like a possible CIS, none of these practices have any engineering requirements. So we're not waiting on, sorry, not waiting. I don't mean to. Sorry, don't mean to say. I know, it's just like real, and she's so amazing, and like, but it is, it's just reality. Okay, you don't need a water right verification because we're not doing any irrigation practices. Also something I haven't mentioned yet is if we are doing micro systems, if NRCS is paying for a micro like drip to go in, we require that you get whatever that source water is that you're using tested prior to that design happening. That could be like, I've had a producer, I think it was like $300 out of pocket, just so you know that would be a requirement.
So if you're using a municipal source, can you just get a record from their testing and submit that?
Yes, I've seen that work, and I've seen irrigation districts.
Yeah, it kind of depends
Oh,
on
sorry.
what they're testing for though, because there are certain things that we require. Okay, so if they're testing whatever it is that we're asking about.
Thank you. I didn't mean to speak out of
No, no,
turn.
no.
You're you're totally right. And there is, and I can send that out too. There's it's a list of.
It's not a very big list of like required, there's required and then there's like suggested tests. And as long as they don't put everything required on that list, which I think is, I don't remember what they are, but I think it's like maybe 4 things. Then I will be accepted.
Okay. Miles?
If you were collecting rainwater, does that need to be tested?
I don't know actually, because we haven't.
Rainwater is generally pretty clean.
Yeah,
Depends on the
Yeah.
roof.
yeah, depends on the roof, so.
Oh, okay.
Probably,
I
just
don't-
because it's technically in the standard, I don't know if there's a way to not, or like to get around that, just because it's in our standard, because for NRCS, like we have to live by our standards. I don't know, that's a good question.
In Washington, I know King County is requiring even more rainwater collection that it goes through filtering system, especially for food production. And so that may come to Oregon.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the rainwater catchment system designers are working with, some of them are already incorporating these filtering systems and meet water quality standards.
That would make sense.
And I will say that like, if you are doing a drip system, through NRCS, part of that payment rate is actually like, it includes the filter. And a lot of these systems are really small, so it's not gonna require anything, you know, huge anyway, so it's not hard to include a filter on there.
This is great. This is exactly like the troubleshooting. Yeah, okay.
We have a
right.
question and
Yeah.
2 questions online.
Okay.
So from Michelle, what about building codes? I hear that tunnels are in direct conflict with building codes and have been built incognito to ask for forgiveness later.
That is a great point. I know it depends on where you're located. I am not up to speed on all of the areas and the permitting involved, but that is definitely something to look at. It's usually a conversation I have with a landowner before it goes into a contract. Does anybody here, Jeremy, I'm looking at you, Jeremy, does you or anybody who's worked with high tunnels run into this issue as far as permitting goes? Is it a deal breaker?
I haven't dealt with that yet. Urban Acre would be the ones to ask.
Yeah, and it'd be pretty, oh,
I've
yeah,
dealt with it before in Multnomah County.
Yeah.
And our takeaway was that the high tunnel was a non-permanent structure that did not require a foundation.
Mhm.
And so it was like in agricultural zoned area exempt from permitting. I don't know how that, I guess it would fall down to like local code
yeah,
for
And like-
like urban areas that are not zoned, like EFU.
gotcha. So if it was residentially zoned, it might come up as an issue. Okay.
I imagine they would be treated the same way if that's like a shed or some other structure
Yeah.
is.
Historically, NRCS with the high tunnel initiative, we have definitely put the onus on the landowner to, you know, say, okay, it's up to you to just figure out if you do need permitting. And sometimes that has been a deal breaker. I know in the Columbia Gorge, because it's a scenic area, I think the permit was like $5,000, to put up the structure, and it just didn't pencil out for that person, but definitely something to note for sure. I'll try to look more into kind of where those issues are coming up in and around the UGB. Anything else before oh, Lauren, was there another one?
Yeah, just one more from Jason with Growing Gardens. Are there other examples from other states that we could pull from, like this example from Washington?
Oh, for urban fun pools?
Yeah, something similar to this.
Yes, yes, I'm trying to think if there's like a place for that. I'm like on a team site where all the urban people and small acre people share ideas and things, but that's internal. I don't know of any other like external, like outward facing places that you would find that except for Google searching. If they put that out as like a public affairs thing. Trying to think of what else. Also, just Oregon is, didn't mention this. Oregon is unique. I think we are one of 2, I know Montana's doing it now. 2 states that are doing the CIS process. In every other state, you can just walk in and apply for, you know, as long as there's a resource concern, it's like legit, you could apply for anything. So Oregon is different in that we kind of have to be very concentrated and strategic with our approach. So if they do have a fun pool, it might look a lot different in another state.
So I'm just trying to understand, would, for example, the Urban Ag Starter Pack be another allowed funding channel similar to high tunnel, similar to organic, similar to, so it'd be something added to that list of eligible funding.
Correct. Yep. So, yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the gaps in funding are, where our
Yeah.
current programs aren't being able to like we have high tunnel, but like we don't have anything else under high tunnel. And the organic initiative has everything, but you have to be organic or like certified, and a lot of people aren't fitting that definition.
Right.
I'm realizing I want to make sure that I get some more feedback and get to our exercise. So this I think is gonna be, I don't know, I keep hearing water, you know, there's water issues all over the state over here. It's all falling at the wrong time, and the municipal water, the cost of using municipal water for irrigation purposes is cost prohibitive. NRCS can install rainwater harvesting systems. We can put gutters, downspouts, outlets, storage tanks, filtration, like I think Adriana was mentioning, the filtration systems, I think are built into our practices. But we'll make sure that they're like, there's design for that. Micro irrigation to make sure that you're using that irrigation water efficiently. And then we even pay on being able to document your water management over the course of the irrigation season. So that's paying you for your time and for conserving that water. Sometimes those IWM plans can include soil moisture probes, weather stations, things that will help you track that water usage better. So this is a strictly like water focused, dealing with naturally available moisture use and inefficient irrigation water use resource concerns. We're gonna talk more about this in a second, but for this, if this was gonna be a CIS, we just have to expect that the timelines to apply for this and then get a contract and to get something in the ground is gonna be much longer. Because all of those practices are engineering heavy.
Looks like we lost the owl connection. I was wondering if it was just me, but. Looks
I
like
don't
we're all
hear it
experiencing-
either, Lauren.
Okay. Well, let me ping Stephanie and hopefully she can respond and get us back connected.
There's the backyard habitat program that already exists. This would be like piggybacking or like doing similar work in not backyards, but like on urban farms. If they wanted to integrate pollinator habitat into their operation or enhance pollinator habitat that already exists. If that was something, and I had a wonderful QR code that would lead you to, somebody's already done this, wonderful conservationist named Carly Heron over in Hood River has created a pollinator CIS that we basically could just kind of copy and paste, be super easy, copy and paste it over here. So those are my three main ideas was urban ag starter pack, rainwater harvest catchments, and then pollinator. And I would love to do all of these things, but the reality is that we only get so much money in the state. It's ambitious of me to think of two. I'm gonna try to go do 2 CISs to submit this year to be online for next year. If for some reason I can only do one, I wanna just hear like, what is the priority? So at this point, kind of hearing my ideas, I would love to hear your ideas. Do I have this right? Or do I have this totally wrong? What are the other resource concerns? What are the other issues that urban producers are facing that NRCS can actually help with?
Can you describe the scale of funding requests that you can make? Is it $10,000?
I did a CIS called the Food Security Initiative, and it was like a 5-year ask. And, it changes over time, and I think I had initially requested 75,000 and then 125,000, but the demand was like, I think the second year that I was doing it, I asked for 125 and the demand was 1.5 mil. Aaron has been a DC for a very long time and is more familiar with how much you can ask for.
So you can ask for more than that. We have some on the east side that, you know, the total in the 5 years was 1.5 million. So, but we're dealing with forestry and things that cost thousands of dollars an acre.
It would be unreasonable to ask for $1 million for pollinator habitat. As much as I would love to see all that go in, just the workload to payment ratio just wouldn't.
I think there's 350,000 households in our district, so it really isn't.
Oh, let's talk about RCPP then.
You know what I mean? I mean,
We were just on the precipice of getting feedback.
Sorry,
from
sorry.
growers.
Sorry.
So can we
You're right.
stick to that to
You're-
see what the growers are needing here, because that's what's gonna drive the 1.5 million or the 350 or
Yeah.
$10. I mean, that's the point of the meeting, is to capture what the growers need, to take that feedback back to the state office, to take it up to the Fed. So if we could stick with that, I think that would be huge.
Thank you so much. You're totally right. Are there any, Lauren, are there any producers out there that have input?
I have asked the question and so far just some info on Xerces. The rainwater catchment is super helpful in our area. Waiting for other comments to come in.
And I guess so there's a little bit of confusion in the room and probably online. You know, this is supposed to be a locally led process, and that's why we're having this meeting.
Mhm.
And so from the input from the producers, from the partners, then Stephanie can start working with you guys and come up with a CIS. What she's proposing here is some things that she's already identified that are missing. Well, we could add additional resource concerns. She could go back in and find some additional practices to meet those and totally tailor those to what is needed in the local area. And so typically, we're trying to make sure that the resource concerns that we're looking to identify are really the priorities in your area. What we're gonna do is kind of run through an exercise and give everybody the opportunity to say, hey, here's 6 or 8 or 10 resource concerns, which ones really should be at the top? And then she can basically develop something specific to address those. And yeah, we've got 10 or 15 minutes, so we can kind of look at the resource concerns that were up on that list. I did write them down, so.
Aaron brought this easel from John Day, okay? We have to use it.
Right, and so maybe I'll put those up there, and then if there's anybody else that has from that list, from that table that's been provided in the packet, others that we want to add on there, we can add on there. And maybe today we just kind of get an idea of what those should be. And the other thing to think about is we hold these meetings once a year, but that doesn't mean we don't take input throughout the year. So you're like, hey, these are resource concerns, talk to Stephanie, talk to the DCs, and they can consolidate that information as they start developing those CISs. So let me put those up, and then maybe if you want to just highlight real quickly the timelines on the CISs, because that's
Yes.
kind of the other important piece.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, as Aaron gets that squared away, the CIS process, so I would need to, basically like an internal grant. So I would write a grant asking for money for the next 5 years to fund a fund pool for urban producers. The deadline for me to get that submitted, I actually don't know. It's sometime in the fall, I'm sorry, in the summer, late summer, near the end of before our fiscal year ends. I think it's August, no.
No, usually the timeline is sometime in April or May.
Okay.
Not too far away.
I have until April. I have until April to create 2 CISs, 2 grants. Not impossible. Ambitious, maybe.
How many of errors today?
That's fine. That's like how my day is. And then if it goes through a review process where there's a committee that tells me if I need to make any adjustments to the CIS. And then if all goes well, it's online available for producers to apply to beginning in our next fiscal year. So that starts in October. And then that would mean getting like projects in the ground, not this summer, but next summer. That's kind of the timeline.
Looks like there's some chats coming in, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, Lauren, is there, happy to field any questions or thoughts people are having?
Yeah, so some comments, and a question. So Michelle asked, would funding for installing in separate water gauges be available so that the sewer fee portion of one's water bill can be tracked and discounted?
We do have a practice just for flow meter under structure for water control.
Yeah, I believe it got put back in, it disappeared.
Disappeared last year, it's
and then-
back.
And then it came back.
There for a fit. So a flow meter it depends on,
The flow meter part, I'm unfamiliar with the question. The separation of sewer, water, you mean discharge to the,
yeah, there's some clarification here. Are you asking about the discharge,
yeah.
the discharge water,
Yeah,
Michelle?
what is,
I'm sorry, the gray, with gray water?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking, the separation from sewer, I'm not understanding that.
I'd like, as far as like, cause you get just like one meter reading, right? So this would be what's like a separate meter for irrigation purposes.
I don't know, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
She's nodding, I think.
Oh, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I spoke with several urban ag folks years ago, and I know there's like a Portland urban ag group with a listserv, but they're very quiet and dead. But Stacy and Genevieve should know that link and share that with you if you want to try to revive it or share it with people.
Yes.
I was just trying to look for it, but anyways, along the flow meter, sorry, I didn't know the term. Like from my understanding, like Zanger Farm, it cost them a lot of money, but they put in 2 flow meters. One flow meter from the water street off of Foster goes directly to the fields. And because it goes to the fields and it's not pumping sewage water into our sewer system, it isn't overloading the sewer system, it's not adding to that or getting intermingled with human waste and other issues. It then they like on that bill were able to pull like the sewage fees or calculate like the sewage part of management on that, since it just seeps right into the water table, into the soil and into that wetland area down below. And then the other flow meter that goes to their building, their offices, and it has restrooms and kitchens and everything. It has normal municipal sewage treatment fees and other things attached to it, was my understanding. So I was like, wow, that's a great way to like save some change and still ensure you have access to water in conjunction with rainwater catchment and offsetting it that way as well.
If we can do that, I would love, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, we can help with the flow meter, I think it would just be figuring out with, like, the city, how that works with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
They did something similar with downspout disconnects.
so I think that's something we're gonna bookmark, and that could be explored under the rainwater harvest scenario to be added to. Any other ideas or things that could bolster the CIS, Preet?
Yeah, just like a human concern that comes up often is that urban producers, need to live close to markets. They need to live on transportation corridors, which is not where the agricultural land is. And, transportation is a challenge, especially for community-based organizations or collaborative farming organizations that need a lot of people to get out to the land. Transportation costs a lot. Not everyone has cars. Figuring out a way to cover some of the costs of like transportation is important because it's way less common for people to live where they're farming.
Okay, I think that's like, would be like almost an energy concern too. So I'm gonna have to chew on that. Cause that's a new one for me. But that's, thank you.
Can I ask another clarifying question?
Of course.
Is it transportation of getting to the production to actually make it, or is it the transportation of getting the crop to a market?
To the market.
Or both? Both, okay,
Getting the people
yes.
to the place.
So the cost of the transportation to get stuff growing, and then when it's harvested, how do you get it to market? I got you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another thing that we're working on as urban conservationists across the nation is to develop practice scenarios that don't exist yet. So I'm taking some of this feedback too. If it's not something we have currently, then that'll be brought up into these conversations for future considerations on a national level. I just want to note real quick, I'm gonna get to more. We have 3 minutes. I'm happy to stay longer, but I want to just be considerate of everybody else's time. If anybody needs to leave at 3 o'clock, and I want to make sure that their voice is heard. Producers. Lauren, anybody chime in?
Since we do have 3 minutes, you might, if you just give us those 3 proposed CISs real quick, and then maybe we'll, if anybody wants to put something in the chat to vote which one their highest priority is, and then we can also do the highest priority in the room. Then
Yeah.
that'll give you at least an idea of what from
Okay,
those ideas, if that would work.
rank on one through 3.
Sure,
Okay,
and then just
yeah, if everybody,
which one
if
is,
folks are still on and could just do starter pack, water, pollinator, 1, 2, 3. Put a number next to each one. Or I don't know, Lauren, I don't know if that's a poll thing that could happen, but just so that we can have that prioritization accounted for. Or maybe is it easier for me to, I don't know, what's the easiest way to do this with hybrid? Okay,
What I thought, you're also discussing other options that we're already really potentially want, so
we are.
if something else comes into play and one of those gets bumped out, yeah, because there's now transportation for energy on the table, and
Yeah.
I was gonna mention a couple other, I don't know how many other people are having the same issue, but. I mean, I was just gonna throw out too, because urban spaces are small. Composting, and that ability to maintain, your even cover crops. Well, I don't even really have a place to like give clover, get rid of it, so it goes to composting. So they just can't necessarily handle all the potential items that are going into a small area, both to garden and to compost. And so I don't know what the solution is.
Is it that folks need composting facilities and don't have them, or they just don't know how to manage the?
I think they
waste?
need more space for
They need
composting
more
facilities and or being able to rid of more green waste, whether, through the street dumpster or something for those when their composting facilities are maxed out. But yeah, even installing them.
You just got me thinking, partners, there's an OUAIP, the Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production. There's another grant just for composting at like city or like neighborhood levels. Like you can get a program, like ask for money for developing or implementing a composting program. So I'm thinking like that, because if you don't have space on your property, like maybe there's like a neighborhood or some sort of, I don't know, something, but that might be a better fit. We could deal with compost on site. We could put in compost facilities, maybe, yes. Depends.
With the practices available, yes.
Yeah, it's an engineering one. And we had another,
You might also be able to get it through one of the partners that are here as well.
Yeah, as far as developing my own neighborhood thing, I don't know if I could do that time, but the other we also take manure management, which is, I know, we get a lot of people just getting as many goats as they can and whatnot, and they just don't have the space, and so, yeah, it's an issue
that's great.
in these small areas.
That is awesome. Okay.
Metro funds a waste management grant, I think they put 2 million in every other year. Specific, that's the investment and innovations grant. That specifically will fund composting, recycling, and repair, reuse projects.
To add to manure management is that like leachate from excess fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and I think there is already a plan on that, right, like nutrient management.
That's what I was gonna tack on to that urban starter pack, but I thought it might be like advanced mode. Because if we are applying soil carbon amendment, at some point we need to start looking at nutrient management.
I've spoken with NRCS and their value added program will fund composting programs, like, initiatives.
Okay,
Because this is enhancing the soil.
awesome.
So especially if you're selling the compost or doing something and it's a product that, they said they'd consider it.
Okay, we just hit 3:02. I'm seeing something come up in the chat. I see hand raised. Lauren, I just want to touch base.
Yeah. Michelle, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had like a comment or a concern, just in this realm generally, and wondering if any of this potential projects could help like address it. I think it's really important that we have green spaces interspersed in our urban areas and that we grow food super close as well as on the outer rings of our urban areas. But my concerns are kind of around air pollution and all of the runoff and contamination that high traffic roadways can cause. I left some comments in this chat, but I've seen some really damning soil test results, especially near an apartment I used to live in on Southeast Division, like the 20s, really close into town, and they were really high in something I don't remember. And that like just also witnessing like the city of Seattle was like, here's this like beautiful land you can farm, but it like was literally on the retaining wall overlooking I-5, and that just felt like such a delightful way to like look good and poison the people at the same time. And so I just don't know what we can creative ways to approach air pollution and soil contamination remediation work could look like.
Yeah, I think Erin put that on the board. I will look into it.
I think actually, so I don't remember but I was thinking hedgerows. Because a lot of times hedgerows they're used anyways between farm and urban. But if it was incorporated a hedgerow, both pollinator hedgerow and air pollution hedgerow, combining those two practices.
And stormwater runoff for me.
And so,
Yeah. We have also have a practice called a field border. That creates these border areas to help. So that's like a filtration system. The hedgerow one is interesting. That's come up in the past too, like, oh, I want to put a hedgerow for pollinators and to also prevent the chemical drift. But then you run in, you don't want to create a bunch of habitat where a bunch of pollinators are going to come in, and then yeah. So maybe it's like if you have the space, like having like one side that's more pollinator, friendly, and then having.
I think the drift on urban is mostly air pollution versus
Coming in.
versus the herbicide or pesticide
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, maybe less of an issue that. Kyle, yeah.
It looks to me like there aren't going to be any funds going towards the more controlled environmental agriculture, rooftop greenhouses, the huge vertical indoor growing systems that are starting to catch on. You're not able to move into that area.
Maybe a little bit, but like Adriana was saying, I think they've gone through the review process. They're about to publish engineering handbook for us internally to start being able to design those systems. So I definitely am thinking about that, and we're trying to move the needle forward on it. And those are going to be discussions that are going to help move national to start developing practices or scenarios that might be more applicable. But I'll definitely make sure that that is mentioned.
Yeah,
in
those are just becoming more a part of urban agriculture.
I think we can kind of fit some things in that area, like I was saying, like upgrades. A lot of that usually is precipitated by an energy audit that gets completed by a technical service provider, someone who's trained to do that. And then we use that information to see where we might be able to put in those upgrades.
Okay.
I was gonna, I really like the kind of redefining specifications for fitting herb.
Yeah.
That's what we are doing on a constant basis, even in the rural program, because rural also, you know, in Washington County, it's that UGB just keeps expanding, so, but that is helpful in sort of downsizing these specs to urban cases.
I want to field one thing, it was on my to-do list today, just to kind of see what people's thoughts are. Because our CIS is, because this fund pool has to have a geographic boundary on it. Now, that boundary could be the whole basin, the whole state, but realistically, because it's an urban fund pool, there's gonna have to be some sort of like, UGB is like the natural, like, geographic boundary, but I know a lot of producers are farming on that peri-urban, suburban, on the perimeters, bringing things into Portland. So Aaron had told me about a great idea. We have, for all of our applications, they all go through ranking. They all get asked the same questions so that they are all ranked the same. And we discussed a sliding scale, like you get more points if you're like if you're in the UGB, like, I don't know, just pulling numbers out of my head. 50 points for being in the UGB. 25 within 5 miles of the UGB, 10 points within 20, whatever it is. A sliding scale of points, so that, what if we make up this fund pool and the only people who are applying are like right on the edge or right outside the UGB? I want to make sure that they are accounted for. Does that sound, is there a better way? Is this more?
I like it. One additional thing might be where's your labor coming from, if that's a component, or
Oh, okay, like
thinking
if
about the
it's,
transportation side of it too, is if your labor is mostly urban and they're having to get, or maybe the majority of it's a community group, but I don't know if that could be incorporated.
okay,
Just one concern there is that the, areas outside of the urban growth boundary have much higher concentrations of Black, Indigenous, and POC communities, Forest Grove, Cornelius, like traditional farm communities that, it wouldn't want to penalize them for, being outside of an area that they've already been priced out of.
mm-hmm. Wait, make note of that, or I can write it down. One thing to note too, that I didn't talk about, and on that subject matter, we have, NRCS has these categories of historically underserved communities or people. Veteran farmer rancher, limited resource, socially disadvantaged. Veteran, what?
Women owned.
Nope, that's FSA. We do not consider gender. And I say we as an agency, don't shoot the messenger. What, veteran, especially just, beginning farmer rancher. So if you've been, farming or ranching for 10 years or less, those historically underserved people, get extra points and prioritization for all of our programs, through that ranking process. So we have separate questions and that help to lift them up. But also a good thing to just be cognizant of that and see how we might be able to better address those issues in this urban fund pool.
I guess my only question to link onto that is at what point in that, and maybe this is a question for after, actually.
All
Just
right,
in the sense of when does regular equip rural, how far away do you need to be? You know what I mean?
before it tapers out.
Yeah, to where you're like, you would just be better off going to the regular equip, through Washington County instead of trying to figure out, whether you're gonna be for the urban, for the funny pool. I don't mean to muddy the waters.
No, it's an important
Yeah.
question.
That's a very good point that you guys made about that fact that if you're so far out, you're gonna So I don't know.
That would be a good conversation with Kim and Jessica,
Yep.
Yeah.
just to see, yeah, what,
Well, for the
see,
whole
they're going for, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and with, Washington County and with, local, you know.
It's also worth checking with all the SWCs. Obviously, more and more SWCs are getting urban programs, but they don't necessarily have funding for urban. And so like Tualatin, we separate our funding, you know, so the regular EQIP is available, but only for rural. They have, that program that provides that service is only providing it to rural, so outside UGB. And then anything that's within UGB and that's our fund, that's this program's funding. And so, I know it's kind of been a weird divide and, you know, kind of scenario, but I don't know how all, you know, how other SWCDs are gonna be able to do that. And or if they're making that ability for the regular EQIP available within urban and allowing the urban program to then serve and provide, you know, EQIP and other stuff. So that it might be worth doing a SWCD query.
Yeah, I'm
Are
gonna.
you with the solar water district? Oh.
Well,
I'm sorry, I never met you. I thought you were a grower, and I can't.
I'm really dirty today.
I thought you were, I'm sorry, don't take that the wrong way. I immediately regret it.
I just want to check in with our Zoom crew. I know we're running late. I really appreciate your time. I'm happy to hang out. Lauren, is there any comments that I haven't picked up yet or questions?
There's several comments that would be good for you and Aaron to add to the whiteboards that you're marking up just
Great.
after we're done online.
Okay,
Some people have started trickling out, so I think we can end the Zoom and I'll end with the recording. And I've dropped
you.
the link to subscribe to our urban newsletter in the chat.
yeah, I
so-
don't have my contact info. I
Yes,
think, okay, thank you so much. I just wanna, really appreciate everyone's time. I'm sorry I missed the folks that have left already, and providing that feedback. I really hope to be able to repay that by having some funding available that's relevant, to you and your constituents. And if you want to keep having this conversation, let me know. I don't know what the group thinks about if it'd be beneficial to have like a follow-up in a couple weeks, just to chat, or I'm happy, I don't know what the best way is, but I feel like there's a lot, maybe more that needs to be talked about. And I didn't plan for that much time here today. I think I'll do a follow-up email with the group to see what the interest is in having a follow-up meeting that's just more, let things digest and see if there's anything else that needs to be said. So thank you all, really appreciate it.
thank you.
Next year for the second Portland Metro Local 43 meeting. Bye.